Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Go to bed already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon, running a little behind schedule. And by a little, I mean, god dang, I don't know where the time went. I started researching a bit for the nonsense that AMD kind of pulled off today. Well, not today, over the last week. Because it's something I wanted to have a very firm grasp around before I even tried to pretend like I could pull this off. Because it's quite the I don't know what to call it, quite the release that AMD has kind of pulled off here. So we're actually starting about an hour and 5 minutes late. So I just got to adjust my finishing clock a little differently, that's all. But first let's talk about something that I'm kind of a little surprised is not getting anywhere close to the amount of coverage that it should. This is not rumor. Unlike every other acquisition ever in the history of tech, this is an actual report. This is happening. Verizon is buying Yahoo. For what specific reason, I am not 100% certain quite yet. For the most part, it looks like they're buying Yahoo for a lot of their web services, including Yahoo Mail, Yahoo News. I think Yahoo Games was in there too. It's questionable. Hold on, let me adjust the mic here a little bit here. There we go. At some point between when I set up the mic and actually started up the streaming software and actually started the stream, and hopefully before I actually had the mic go hot, it just decided to like scrunch in on itself. So if there was a loud thud noise on the stream and on the recording, I apologize. But we got that taken care of now. I also should sound a lot cleaner. But in any case, so Verizon is buying Yahoo, and only certain aspects of it. Not the whole thing quite yet, if they even go for the whole thing. But this is an acquisition of $4.83 billion. That was announced. And this is going to be paired off along with AOL, which Verizon also owns. Now, as of right now, as of the time of this recording, there's no major changes coming down yet. Personally, I would greatly appreciate if Verizon would just do me a solid and just force Yahoo to go with like real sources for their news. Because honestly, the news sources that Yahoo goes to, they always go to the more biased of the mainstream sources, and then go off into wingnut territory every time. And I'm getting dang sick of people citing frickin' Al Jazeera, accepting that as fact, and then coming to me going, but it was on Yahoo News. I've written off Yahoo News entirely because of this sort of nonsense. If you want that Yahoo News brand to live, my God, have them get more diverse sources and have them axe out the extremists. I don't care whether they're extreme right or extreme left. Axe them. Get it out of that algorithm. My God. Yahoo Games, unfortunately, I don't have much experience with. I don't have a lot of experience with the Yahoo Mail. I've heard it's gotten some improvements since I used it back when I was in high school. I'm not sure if it's on the same tier as a Gmail, but who knows? That's pretty much the Yahoo News thing is the only thing I really have a major complaint with and how it operates. The rest of it, it's fine as it is. Could use improvement, but it's not like grossly terrible like Yahoo News is. And then the same thing goes with Yahoo Finance and Yahoo Sports. Yahoo Sports, I was actually shocked to find out they actually have a syndicated radio network. I could not believe that either. That they actually have a radio station that is syndicated to local radio stations. And usually those stations only put Yahoo News on, Yahoo Sports on when they just need a filler spot. But still, I was a little surprised by that. Internet company having radio. In any case, let's move on to this one. Actually, for reasons, didn't make its rounds in the tech sphere at all. And those tech spheres that did talk about this talked about it in a very biased manner. Now, I'm going to have a hard time talking about this in a non-biased manner because this is a very hard story to talk at all in a non-biased manner. It's extremely difficult. So, before I get into this, I'm going to tell you where I come from. Politically, I am a moderate. I'm in the middle. I analyze both sides, whether Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, blah, 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 blah. I look at which side presents an idea that makes the most sense, and which side presents the most detail. I am a very details-oriented guy. Just telling me you're going to cut taxes doesn't mean squat to me. I want to know where. I want to know what the aftermath of it's going to be. You say you're going to raise taxes on the rich. What rich? What do you consider rich? How much of a tax increase? Are there going to be exceptions to that increase? What is that extra revenue going to be used for? These are details I demand out of political officials. This year, I am extremely SOL in that regard. Because both of the candidates, Hillary Clinton and Trump, are not details people. Trump, on one hand, speaks in, I think the biggest sentence he's ever spoken that was off a teleprompter was 6 words. And he's all about winning. He's on the same sort of drugs as Charlie Sheen, in my opinion. Whereas Clinton, I believe, cannot tell a single truth if her life depended on it. So, someone like me who's in the middle, that leaves me between a rock and a hard place. So, that's where I stand. So, now that you know where I stand, let's talk about the DNC email leak. Let's first get one thing out of the way. A lot of times in the tech world, we confuse cyber attacks and hacks constantly. From what I understand with this particular leak, this was an actual hack made by what sources claim are the Russians, who then 22,000 emails got sent over to Julian Assange over at WikiLeaks, and then he made them public. And he made them public because he says that he absolutely despises Clinton. I can share some of that sentiments. So, what is fascinating about this particular story is that, for starters, the tech sphere is not touching this, not with a 10-foot pole. Which is fascinating because this is huge. Underline huge. Second, no one in any news outlet, unless you go over to Fox, which, that's another bundle of, we're not touching that today. No one except for Fox is talking about the content. And then if you go further, right, they're making up content about what was in there. To which then I have to say, double check anything. Always double check anything. And in the case of this story, it is super easy to check the source, because the source is up there on WikiLeaks. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with this one is the notion that the Russians did this. That's the part of this story, which is the most talked about element of the story, that doesn't make a single spit of sense. It might have been a hacker that is Russian. That is possible. But to say that it's a state-sponsored hack, that makes no sense. If it was a state-sponsored hack, why the hell would they make it public? If you were Russia, wouldn't the first thing you'd say is, hey, look, we got 22,000 emails of the DNC coordinating with media outlets, 22,000 emails of screwing over Bernie Sanders, who, again, I have a low opinion of. Mainly because of the fact that he couldn't pass an Econ 101 class if his life depended on it. 22,000 emails of all sorts of other juicy little DNC secrets. Why would they go public with that? Why would they go public with that and make the running candidate who historically has been easy on Russia and make her look like an idiot? Make her party look terrible. Why wouldn't they keep that to blackmail them with? That's just the part of this I don't see how there's an ounce of truth to that. That makes no sense. Now again, it could be an anti-American Democrat who lives in Russia. It could be another bit of space sponsor, another, what's the correct term? A different country, a different state-sponsored hacker meant to frame the Russians. In fact, that seems more likely. It would not surprise me at all if it was what's a good country that would absolutely under no circumstances want Clinton in the office. We'll go with Israel. You'd easily be able to sell me on Israel did the hack and wanted to make it look like the Russians did it. I could buy that. I'd buy that in a heartbeat. But the fact that a lot of these outlets just very quickly and very willingly to blame the Russians, that seems weird to me. That seems off. It makes no sense. All right, there. I have now filled my political quota for this entire election year. I'm sure I'm going to touch on this subject again, and I'm sure I'm going to have to go through a 5-minute rant every time saying where I stand in politics and how much I just want to just hide in the closet while this is going over, because my God. Could this be any more of a vote between a douche and a turd? I don't think it could be. I legitimately do not think this could be. All right, moving on. To put the chat is claiming that it also could be a streamer and associated with birds. Let's get one thing straight real quick. I have a decent amount of hacking knowledge. I know enough to be able to tell the difference between a cyber attack and an actual hack, and what even is a hack, that sort of thing. I could perform very basic methods of penetration testing to make sure a network is secure. There is no way on earth, unless the DNC had their admin account password be guessed, that I could have broken in. And also, if that was the case, it would have been reported. And no, I'm not getting out of the closet. Anyway, so Microsoft is cutting 2,850 more jobs, including some in Microsoft sales. A lot of people in the tech sphere are looking at this as huge news. I know close to 3,000 jobs vanishing in the blink of an eye. However, let's look at the timing for a minute. First off, Microsoft still has, 110,000 jobs. These cuts come on July 28th. For those who are unaware, July 29th is the end of the Windows 10 free package. Considering the fact that these jobs are also being cut out of sales, it seems to me that this is more being timed with the finishing of the massive rollout of Windows 10. And granted, some of these other cuts, they're saying that it's from this report is claiming that it's from phone hardware and sales. Phone hardware for Microsoft has just been a boat anchor to the company. It's been loading them down, weighing them back. I give Microsoft credit for trying just their dang hardest to try and make Nokia phones a thing, to try and make Windows Phone 10 a thing. It just isn't. It's not catching on. And A for effort, and maybe down the road, Windows phones will catch on as a business phone to fill in the void that BlackBerry is leaving. I could see that. The fact that there's some more cuts to the phone hardware section, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. That's not news. That's expected. And the fact that there's cuts happening to the sales department, again, the massive free Windows 10 rollout just ended. It just ended last Friday. By the way, that means for those of you out there who are trying to get upgrade to Windows 10, you are now looking at a $100 upgrade. Sorry. That's just how it is. The rest of us have been trying to warn you. Give it a shot and downgrade if you have to. You're out of time now. You are out of time. So yeah, that's what these layoffs are all about. Not surprising in the least. What is surprising, well, not really actually, is that the iPhone sales have dropped. Once again, the iPhone sales numbers are declining. And there's some good reason for that. One, we are getting very close to yet another iPhone release. People are holding off to see what happens there. Two, Android phones are getting bigger, so there's less of an appeal for an iPhone, seeing as how there is a decent competitor right there. I don't have a Windows phone, by the way. Just FYI, chat room. Still don't have a Windows phone. I have a broken Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. But the screen's cracked. So yeah, the smartphone market has been flooded. And on top of that, there hasn't been a whole lot of unique innovation. The latest bit of innovation is this curved edge. That's it. Which may or may not also make the phone more breakable. In fact, actually, let me get this out of the case so you can get a better look. Like, that's the latest bit of innovation that's come out. Just a curved screen. It's nothing. So, of course, nobody's going to be buying a new phone. They can just go, well, I can just go get any other phone. They're all comparable nowadays. All close to the same power. In the case of Android, no matter what phone I get, it's going to have glitches if I push it too far. In the case of iPhone, no matter what I get, I'm going to be restricted into my little box. Still going to have a grid of icons no matter what I do. This shouldn't be a surprise. This shouldn't even be news. Why is this news? This is obvious. There is something, though, that isn't obvious. There is a massive report out about Nintendo's next console. So far all we know about it is that, well, at least before we had a bunch of reports speculating, and that it was going to be called the Nintendo NX. Now, I'm not sure if Nintendo has confirmed that its name is the NX. I'm not sure if that's just an internal code name that got leaked out. I'm not sure anyone really knows. Here are some interesting little things, though. First off, the NX is rumored not to be a desktop console, but a portable console. The next evolution of the 3DS. Which is fine. It hasn't seen evolution in quite some time. It's also rumored to have wireless controllers with this thing. Detachable controllers of some sort. See, right there, it feels kind of, right there, this report seems a little far-fetched to me. But then again, I also didn't believe it when Nintendo said they were using motion controllers that you'd go, woo, and wave it around in the air and control the thing. I thought that was far-fetched as heck, but the Wii actually existed. Just like I also thought the Wii U was also far-fetched. And it turned out that also existed, and that neither one of them was a duck with a leak. But here's the part that fascinates me. Oh yeah, and this thing's also supposed to be using cartridges, you know, much like the 3DS. But the thing that is absolutely fascinating to me, and it actually goes to this article over here, is that Nintendo, the console brand that for the longest time was using PowerPC based processors with an AMD GPU, or back in the day ATI, the NX is rumored to be running on an NVIDIA Tegra system on a chip. The one manufacturer that has been loyal almost to the get-go of ATI and AMD is turning to Team Green, is turning to NVIDIA for not only their CPU, but their GPU. Now, this would most likely mean backwards compatibility dies. Most likely, the Nintendo NX will not be backwards compatible with either the 3DS or the Wii U. It's possible that it could be, but it's extremely unlikely. Now, a lot of places are that got a hold of this report are speculating that's going to be the Tegra X1. Except that's running on Maxwell. The NX is due for March 2017. By that time, the next Tegra will most likely be running on Pascal. Now, I want to be clear on something. This article is rumors about which Tegra it's going to run. The fact that it's running a Tegra is being reported on from an inside source. It's not from a rumor mill, it's actual reports. The reports could be inaccurate, but they don't rise to rumor levels quite as much. So let's get that straight away. Reports say that I was going to be running on a Tegra X1, which seems that doesn't make any sense to me. That would run on the Tegra X1. So that's that. So the Nintendo NX could be a portable 3DS clone with one screen with detachable controllers for other people to use. That runs on an NVIDIA Tegra. I mean, sure, why not? Nintendo always manages to have a way to surprise us, and that's partially why the NX is such a very interesting little piece of rumor bait. So we'll see what the future holds. All right, we're going to take a very quick break here. When we come back, let's actually look at the actual hardware news, including, I'm dead serious when I say this, AMD actually accomplished something unique this last week. I'm not even being sarcastic. Something absurdly unique. We'll be right back. Does it make sense now that the mic is on? That was embarrassing as hell. So anyway, I'm going to restate that now because I realized my mic was completely dead. And now that I've done being a complete idiot, let's try that again. So, the rumored Apple Titan project is reportedly getting a new boss who is rumored to be a former employee of Tesla. We all get that now? Are we all clear on that now? That the rumored project is reported? Oh, God. It's moments like this that I really wish Apple would just admit when secret projects are real. But I know that is never, ever going to happen. So, for those who don't know, Project Titan is the secret project that is publicly known, but not publicly known, about Apple developing an electric car that is also self-driving, running on Apple Maps, which therefore may or may not cause us to just drive off a cliff and into Mount Rushmore, therefore killing us all. Is everyone clear on that now? So yeah, and there's all sorts of other speculation about how this guy who... he used to work at Tesla. He worked at Apple for, I think, a few years. And then reports said that he went over to Project Titan. When that happened, he's been scrubbed from the record from working at Apple. So there's all sorts of fascinating this and that. It basically still just boils down to Apple does, in fact, still to this day, operate as a cult. I'm only being slightly sarcastic when I say that. But fortunately, nobody drinks death Kool-Aid over there, just brainwashing Kool-Aid. Alright, so that's that. Let's move on to Intel completely ruining my mind. So, a while back, we got reports that the age-old tradition of Intel doing tick-tock processors was going to stop. They were just going to be doing whatever they felt like. Either a three-stage, they were kind of vague whether they'd go with a three-stage upgrade or if they were just going to do whatever they feel like or what the story was. Today, we now have an answer, and I freaking hate the answer because it is annoying. So right now, the newest Intel processor on the mainstream side is Skylake. I'm not talking about the enthusiast end or the Xeon's end. Well, I'm not talking about the high-end enthusiast levels or the server end. Right now in the mainstream, whether you are using a desktop, laptop, tablet, or if you're one of the 3 people out there using a Intel-powered phone, your processor is codenamed Skylake. At the end of this year, new processor is going to be coming out that is called Kaby Lake. That will replace Skylake. And that's pretty normal. The name is always similar when it's the second stage of the Intel, when it's the talk to the tick. Then we find out that Coffee Lake was going to succeed Kaby Lake. And at that moment, I just facepalm as hard as I could and ended up dying at the name Coffee Lake. Fortunately, there is a name that is less stupid, and this is Cannon Lake. What is confusing as all heck is that Coffee Lake is only for the laptop processors. Cannon Lake, on the other hand, will be used for certain ultra-low voltage processors, and then the Y-series processors, also known as the Core M's. These processors will be running on 10 nanometers, whereas Kaby Lake and Coffee Lake will not. They'll still be on 14 nanometers. Does this sound confusing and convoluted yet? It should, because it's incredibly confusing and convoluted. Why? Why would you do this? It's like Intel realized that guys like me were just like, they figured out how we work. They figured out that C comes after B. We need to change it up so Y comes after B. Oh, God, why, Intel? It just... Anyway, let's actually go to something that's actually mildly interesting. So for the longest time, on the mainstream side of things, the highest core count we ever got was quad core, and this has been the case since... When was this sucker made? It's running on Xeons. That sucker was made in 2008. Ever since about 2008, the highest core count you get in a non-enthusiast computer was 4 cores. If you actually notice here, this is only showing the mobile processors, so the highest end, the 35-watt laptop chips, come in dual core, quad core, or 6 core. So, at least in Intel land, we can look forward to 2018 laptops in the higher end mobile workstation categories and gaming laptops having 6 cores and 12 threads. So there's that. That's about the only bit of useful information that really comes out of this. So let's get the NVIDIA news out of the way. So to no one's surprise ever, NVIDIA has now announced their professional end graphic cards. Right now it's only 2. Usually the rest of the Quadro cards start existing down the road. But to also no one's surprise, who actually pays attention to this sort of stuff, it is in fact going to be the Quadro P series for Pascal. So you too can go own the Quadro P6000 and the Quadro P5000 for roughly a kidney. They're still Quadro cards. You or I are still not going to be able to afford one without taking a loan out. And there is still very little reason for us to do that, which is a damn shame because I do like the look of that Quadro card. Now, they're all going to be using GDDR5X memory, which does mean that these guys are going to be built around HBM. Unlike the NVIDIA card, unlike the GeForce cards. So there's already a huge difference between the Quadro cards and the GeForce cards. Normally, the only difference is in the Quadro cards have a slightly less clock speed. They're locked in, they're not overclockable, and they have specific drivers so that they work well with Maya, AutoCAD, and all those other fantastic high-end programs that still somehow manage to find a way to run super slow no matter how much hardware you throw at it. Throw a $20,000 rig at it, tough, your loading times are still 5 minutes. So in any case, that's where these guys come in. I mean, the other interesting thing to me is that actually as much as the cards look very gamer-esque, this is actually nowhere near as bad as the GeForce cards. If you've looked at the GTX 1080 or the Titan X from last week, there's all sorts of triangles and angles, and it looks like a micro engine from the Batmobile. These guys, they're using the old design. Granted, I am digging that green accent on the black card. NVIDIA, if you're listening to me, put green accents on your gaming cards. Oh my god, why aren't you doing that? Seriously, what the hell, man? And in fact, the P5000, the lower end one, actually uses a new design that is even blockier. And for those who are wondering why I look wet and hot, it's because A, I ran late, and we're actually like an hour later than we're supposed to be. And B, I just got out of the shower. And C, when I do this particular recording, I don't turn the AC on. I want it to be as pure a recording as possible. So, answering the chat's questions while that's all going. And in fact, the chat also points out that the Quadro P5000 is not aerodynamic. If your plan was, in fact, to have these graphic cards fly, let's move on. That's all I got for you. Alright, so I'll be very quick on this. AMD, instead of introducing higher-end cards, is introducing lower-end cards. We now have expected availability dates. The RX 480 which is their mid-tier $200 card, is supposed to be available now. I say supposed to be because it's not. In fact, let's just quickly get this update out of the way. If you are building a gaming PC now, you still should be holding off on your graphic card. Because A, the GTX 1080 is still way too high. It is still $200 higher than its actual suggested price. And no other cards exist. They're all gone. Not even the RX 480 is out. But now the RX 470 and 460. RX 470 is going to be available August 4th. RX 460 is going to be available August 8th. They're both very meh cards. You're gonna get decent performance per watt out of them, but more importantly, you're gonna get very good performance per dollar out of them. And unlike the NVIDIA cards, the AMD cards, you can crossfire the lower end ones. I wouldn't recommend this quite yet. I would wait for someone like Tom's Hardware to actually go and show us what sort of performance you get out of that before you actually go and try and do something that's silly. Anyway, I'm looking for prices. I'm not sure if they've announced prices yet. But the RX 470 is a 120 watt card. The RX 480 is a 150 watt card, although it goes up to 155. And the RX 460 is a 75 watt card, which means that 260, if it performs well, that may be the new card to go to if you're looking to go and take some pre-built you have buried in a hole somewhere and decide to just have that and just pop this card in there, and all of a sudden, bam, you've got a budget gaming rig. Go get a $100 business computer, pop this sucker in, you're set. Assuming it actually performs. And yep, there is no prices yet, which is a damn shame. But it's safe to say, if I had to guess, I'm going to say the 470 is going to be a $180 card, 460 is going to be a $140 card. That just makes the most sense to me. Though the thing to keep in mind here, the 480 is 2300 stream cores, 470 is 2000, so not much of a performance difference there, just a little bit. The 460, on the other hand, ooh, 896 stream cores. Less than half of what the 470 has. In fact, across the board, until you get down to like clock speeds, it's half of the 470. Ouch. But there is still hope. If you look down here to what the GPUs are, the 480 and the 470 are running Polaris 10. The 460 is running the next generation of Polaris. It's running Polaris 11. So maybe, just maybe, we can hope. I can hope and dream that maybe that 460 with that more advanced architecture will outperform, will perform better than its numbers expect. I don't expect to outperform anything except for this empty soda can, which you can't see, this one. I hope it can outperform this for gaming. So this is going to be something that we got to count on the benchmarkers to go see where this thing sits. Now, in addition to these cards, AMD has announced, first off, so let me explain this much first. AMD and NVIDIA both have professional lines. We just talked about the NVIDIA Quadro series and the NVIDIA GeForce series. The GeForce series is the gaming line. The Quadro series is the professional line. AMD does the same thing. They have the AMD Radeon series, and then they had the Radeon Fire series. Ladies and gentlemen, give a moment of silence for the Radeon, or for the AMD Fire Pro series. It's dead. It's gone. It has been replaced with the Radeon Pro series, which, unlike Team Red, decided to dump Valor and go with Team Mystic all the way, because my god, that blue. And I'm not gonna lie, that blue looks nice, doesn't it? The chat was commenting about the blue there and that nice look. So we have the Radeon Pro WX7100, the Radeon WX5100, and the Radeon WX4100. The thing of note on all of these is that these are some small packages. The biggest one is still a single slot card. If you got the motherboard, you can shove 9 of these into a rig, into a server, or whatever, for all of your stream core processing needs. And there's a lot of cores on that thing. 2300 on a 1U? Granted, stream cores aren't living up to their potential, but still. But they also have a version of, oh no, that's the W700, that's the last gen. And all of it's Polaris 10, Polaris 10, the 4100, once again we see that Polaris 11 showing up. The 4100, 1000 stream processors, and that's a low profile card. There is a lot of AMD performance power in a very, very small package. To which I have to ask, why does the RX 480 suck so hard? If they're able to pull this off, why did you fail when it came to an RX 480? Now someone in the chat, my good friend Regret, brings up in the chat the heat concerns. I'm not too worried about that, because as we can see, there's plenty of ventilation, rear ventilation there, front ventilation there. Most likely these fans are going to spin high, they're going to spin loud. Pro cards don't give two squats about the sound. They won't. Those fans are just going to spin faster. That's all there is to it. All this does is just make me go, why AMD? Why? Why didn't you try better with your actual Radeon line? What, are you going to try and get everyone off CUDA on the professional market? It's a good effort, don't get me wrong. But this just seems like AMD needs to switch their focus. If you can do this on the pro end, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to pack that much power into your consumer project and actually be able to sell a card close to what NVIDIA is. I don't care about a $200 card. That matters if the card's good, which it's not. They're just all over the place. Now let's get to the thing that actually caused me to be late, that I actually had to do research on to comprehend what in the flying frick happened here. So, in addition to those Radeon Pro cards, we have the Radeon Pro SSG. This is currently the top tier of Radeon's Pro cards. Now, here's what makes this thing unique. There's unfortunately no picture of this because no one's been able to take this thing apart to see what sort of black magic went into this thing. First off, you have roughly the performance of the previous card, the RX, or not the RX, the WX7100. You've got that performance here, which is already, you know, fairly well. But if you're going to take up 2 slots, you better have a good reason for doing it. Usually, these sort of graphic cards are equipped with a lot of RAM for the cache. Usually you see these things with, you know, 8 gigs, 12 gigs, 16 gigs of GDDR RAM for the cache. This card is only equipped with 4, at least of GDDR RAM. In addition to those 4 gigs, it is also holding, sit down for a minute, 1 terabyte of solid state cache. There are 2 M2 slots on here, both of them having a 512 gigabyte SSD on it. Those are in a RAID 0, and those sit there as a 1 terabyte cache. Now, this is still in the old... This is still in its early stages, as isn't available for the professional public yet. The main reason being is that the way right now our computers see this thing is that they see a graphic card and a 1 terabyte SSD on this one card, which on its own is pretty funny. Let's be a little honest. Plug in a graphic card, get yourself a 1 terabyte boot drive while you're at it. But Radeon is working on drivers so that, first off, the OS can detect it properly as cache, not actual hard storage. But so that the high-end programs can utilize this cache properly. Now, already the smart ones in the audience are going, but the flash chips are slower than the RAM. And that's true. But being able to communicate, but the whole purpose of it is for that when going into GPU rendering programs, you'll be able to move hundreds of gigabytes onto that SSD and be able to have the graphic card render whatever your project is that much faster. Normally right now, let's say your editing rig has 24 gigs of RAM, which is about average. Let's even say 48 gigs of RAM. And let's say you are using Maya. Let's say you're using Maya. You're editing editing Harry Potter 20 or whatever. Pick your movie. Your movie is hundreds of gigs. And the unfortunate thing is that in order to render it, you don't have the RAM to put it all into RAM. But with this on the GPU side of things, editing in those special effects, it can now do it at the speed of PCI Express. It's not the speed of RAM, but it is still much faster than the speed of SATA, than the speed of hard drive, than the speed of whatever. It is still a huge leap in the rendering world. Although it's not the biggest thing in the world, it's still quite the advancement. And still deserves quite a look at. I mean, let's be honest. Did you really think Radeon would be capable at all of any sort of innovation? I certainly didn't. Anyway, we're way past time. That's it from me today from Eagle Eyes on Tech. I will be back later today with more of the usual gaming streams. Take care, everyone. Rest well. See y'all later.